Hello everybody, and welcome to the definitions for vocabulary terms from Unit 2. The vocabulary terms in this particular unit are coming from the Iliad, and I know at this point we may not have actually begun the epic, but nonetheless we will be starting it next week, and therefore it's important for us to take a look at some of the terms that may pop up not only in that particular work of literature, but in our everyday life. The terms that you'll find here are coming from Book 1 of the Great Epic of Homer, and there are 24 books in that particular epic. So here we go. Let's take a look at the first one, appease. There are so many synonyms for the word appease. When you're trying to appease a child as they're throwing a temper tantrum, you're trying to pacify them, you're trying to placate them, ameliorate them. You're trying to improve the situation by maybe giving in to their demands. Not a good idea when it's a spoiled child. Blissful, I think we all know what it means to feel bliss. So of course, when you're feeling blissful, you're full of joy. You're extremely happy. Since we're going to be dealing with an epic that focuses on war, it's important to know some of the terms that will be tossed around, like bulwark. A bulwark is a defensive wall. There is a great bulwark that surrounds the city of Troy. Not to gross you out, but carrion is the decaying flesh of animals. When you leave a body out in the field without burying it, I'm sure you can leave the rest to your imagination. So whether we're talking about animals or human beings, it's dead bodies that are decaying. The citadel is a fortress, and you'll find that Troy is a very mighty citadel, surrounded, as I said, by that bulwark. But the Greeks are there to try to commandeer. I have to change this vocab spelling. The Greeks are there to commandeer the land. They want to officially take possession of things. They want to take control of the city so that they can get Helen back to Menelaus. And of course, we'll be talking about Helen, how she was abducted, supposedly. A cortege is a procession, a solemn procession. We usually hear of a cortege when you're talking about a funeral. Sometimes if you're driving on the highway, you'll see that their lights are on, their headlights are on, and they're in a cortege, a line of cars. There was also a cortege of pilgrims going to Canterbury last year, when you remember the Canterbury Tales. A courier is a messenger. We also use the expression courier for any company or any employee that transports packages or documents. In our case, in this particular work, it will be a messenger. And a decree is an edict, an order given by someone in authority. Okay, hopefully I'm not moving too quickly. I'm going to shift now to the next set of words. On your list, there's an S on drove. It can exist in the singular form. A drove is a herd or a flock or a large group of people. If they show up to the concert in droves, you know that we're talking about an abundance of concert goers. A horde, if you will. Exult. To exult is to feel or show triumphant jubilation, to show great joy, usually after a victory. The word fallow means something that is left unsown or uncultivated. So if you have land, farmland, that is fallow, that means you're not necessarily going to be using it for that growing season. It is left unsown. A foray is a sudden attack, an assault. There was going to be a sudden attack or assault on Dunsinane in the play Macbeth. And if the outlook is grim, I'm sure you guys know what that means. If the outlook is grim, it is kind of forbidding. It is stern. It's not good. It's somber, I guess you could say, to a certain degree. Your options are not looking very well. That's an N. Sorry, guys. Stern. Uninviting. We talk about the Grim Reaper. He's not somebody that you'd want to have at your dinner table for sure. If you're feeling harrowed, you're feeling distressed. You're feeling somewhat tormented or afflicted in some way. Achilles will feel harrowed at the end of book 1 because he feels as if his pride has been wounded. To hurl is to throw something with great force. If you hurl your backpack onto the couch, you're throwing it there with great power. If you've come across somebody who's the husk of a man, you're saying that they're kind of empty, because the husk is the dry outer covering of something. T.S. Eliot will tell us about the hollow men. They're just husks. They are the people of his society in the 20th century who have no feelings and have no substance to them. So the dry outer covering of something is the husk. We think about it a lot of times in terms of corn. If an action is ignominious, we're trying to say in a fancy way that it's deserving of shame. It's deserving of public disgrace. You could say it was quite ignominious of LSU to lose. They're the reigning NCAA champion from the year 2019, or I guess it might have been the early 2020s, and they open up their home game with a loss. It's ignominious, deserving of public disgrace or shame. Now, I know you're aware of a lot of different definitions for incense, if I were to put the accent on the first syllable, incense. But I want to say if someone is incensed, we want to use this as a verb. And if you are incensed, you are extremely angry. So to be incensed or to feel incensed over something, it is to cause great anger. Agamemnon is incensed when Achilles calls him weak. I know that you're aware of something that's looming in the future, or something looming on the horizon, but we're just going to talk about it in terms of the Iliad. And the loom is the apparatus or the tool for weaving. Now, if you remember the poem Ulysses, apparently in the background to that, Penelope, Odysseus' wife, or Ulysses' wife, was weaving, and she told the suitors that were trying to marry her that she would only consider their proposition or their proposal for marriage when she was done at the loom, and she was done weaving the yarn or the thread. And then every night she would go into her room quietly and unravel what she had woven. This was the way that she kept the suitors at bay until eventually Ulysses/Odysseus came home. The mooring is the place where the ship is tethered at the dock. We can also use the mooring for all of the chains, so I'm going to put a semicolon here, because the mooring could also be the chains and the ropes that do such. So I can actually mean the place where the ship is going to reside, or the chains or the ropes that help it stay there. Overweening is a great word since we have finished the myth Theseus, because overweening means showing excessive pride. And I think all of you will agree that when we were looking at this myth of Theseus, he is guilty of overweening. Am I not the bravest king alive, he says. And then because of his boastfulness, perhaps he's going to have some comeuppance at the end of the myth, which he does at the hands of Hades. To raise a city or to raise something is to completely destroy it. Notice the spelling here. To completely destroy or demolish. Maybe you can think back to Ozymandias from 11th grade. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. He was overweening about how great he was, but when you looked around at the ruins on those long and level stretch of sand, you recognize the fact that his earthly creations did not last very, very long. When someone is ruthless, they show no pity or compassion. Keep this in mind when you take a look at the actions of some of the characters later on in our great epic. Some may be actually called ruthless. If something is sacrosanct, that means it is so important. It is regarded as too important or too valuable to be ignored. To be interfered with. The right to work is sacrosanct. You can't take it away from people. And if we want to tie sack into raise in a way, when you're going to sack a city, it means you're going to plunder that city after you've captured it. Anything that's savory is pleasing to the mind, to the taste, to smell, such savory delights. And the scepter is the staff or the baton that is held by a sovereign, by a king or a queen. It's an emblem of authority, right? A scepter. And we have this last page with just a couple on here. If you're asked to scour the dishes, you are asked to clean them. You may have to use a little elbow grease, so to rub hard in cleansing. A squadron is a regiment of troops. A squadron could also mean a collection of warships. For example, Helen is called the woman who launched 1,000 ships because a squadron of 1,000 ships come sailing to Troy. The face that launched 1,000 ships, I should have said. When something is stark, it is severe, it is bare, it is, desolate in a way. Actually, if you think about Ethan Frome, if you read that book, or even if you have any familiar with that book, I think it takes place in Starkfield, if I'm not mistaken, and that seems to be a nice representation of the kind of life that Ethan is living at that particular stage. I think it's Starkfield. When you talk about a treasure trove, you're talking about a store of valuables. Something that would be delightful things. Maybe you're a versatile student and you're talented in a lot of different areas, or a versatile athlete. You're able to adapt to many different activities and functions if you're versatile. It's a good quality to have. And lastly, I'm sure we all know what a wrench is in terms of a tool, but we're going to use it as a verb here, and to wrench is to twist or to pull. To wrench something away. It can also mean as a noun, if I want to say it would be a real wrench to leave after 8 years, it can also mean a feeling of sadness. And there you have it. the words for Unit 2. Thank you.